Hey everyone, welcome to our event. We have a good group today, excited for this, where we're chatting about the state of AI and UX and product design, and the survey that we did earlier this year. I'm Cam. I'm the VP of Growth here at Designlab. I'm going to introduce our panelists in just a little bit. We'll probably wait uh, another 30 seconds or so for folks to jump in. I see the number jumping up as we speak. Um, we will, and also we're joined by my colleague Emily, who is not on screen, but she is here and she'll be handling some of the things behind the scenes. If anyone wants to in the chat, just like curious where people are calling in from, who you are, feel free to introduce yourself. We do have a pretty big group today, so that chat will get pretty full. As we're talking, we're going to do an audience Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, you also see this questions tab. Put your questions in there. And we will get to those with the panelists towards the end. So with that said, I'm not going to be sharing slides the whole time, but we'll get started with those. So I'm going to start just by giving a little bit of context about our survey. I'm going to intro the panelists towards the end, and we'll be having a discussion about some of the learnings from that survey. If you have any questions, again, throughout, feel free to drop those in the questions tab. Towards the end, we're going to preview a course that we're excited about that's launching actually just in a couple weeks now, and then we're going to do audience Q&A. So that's the run of show. Hopefully you guys learn something. So first, really quickly, many of you guys, if you're on our newsletter or you're on our email, you probably got this already. But earlier this year, we did a survey of our community. About 120 working UX and product designers responded. And we just did a deep dive into how are people actually using AI, right? Like I think a lot of our community and a lot of people in tech in general and in knowledge work in general are kind of anxious about it. And I think there's this sense of, hey, are other people doing things that are interesting that I'm not doing? And we really wanted to get a good sense of what actually is the state today, and then where is this going? As follow-up for that, we actually did interviews with a bunch of people who are doing interesting things, some of which are our panelists today. The range of people who were surveyed were folks who were ICs, managers, heads of departments. So there was a big range. The types of orgs, there was also a big range. We had people in nonprofits, startups, kind of small agencies to, Fortune 500, very large tech companies. So yeah, I think the survey data is interesting for that reason, and we'll dig into some of that as we go. In the chat, actually, and I see everyone's introducing themselves. Hello, everyone. Emily's going to quickly drop the link where you guys can actually get the survey if you haven't already, and if you want to follow along, we'll post that at the end as well, and you can get that. You're not going to need that for this discussion, but just so you guys have it. I'm going to quickly stop sharing my screen so you can see our panelists in a little more detail, and intro our great panelists here. 1 second. So first, we have Nanda Gopal. He is a principal designer at a product studio based in Dallas. He specializes in working with early stage founders and product teams to turn ideas into real usable products, especially in emerging tech spaces like generative AI. Over the past few years, he's led the design of multiple AI first platforms, including Homa Health and TrueLaw, and partnered closely with entrepreneurs and enterprise teams to shape 0 to 1 products for companies like Baker Hughes and Skyflow. He's also a Designlab mentor for our AI for visual design course, as well as, I think, have you mentored for other courses, Nanda? I saw that one.
I'm on the UX one as well, but I'm doing more on the visual design.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he mentoring a number of our courses. Welcome. Thank you for coming. And Nanda actually was one of the survey respondents that we followed up with because he was doing some interesting things, and maybe we can get into that as we go into the discussion. Next, I have Stefan Turdak-Lib. He provided a pronunciation, so I got that. He is a product design lead at Electrolux on a mission to make digital experiences less frustrating and more human. He has 10 plus years in UX and is from Canada, although he is currently crafting from Sweden. Stefan is also a mentor with us at Designlab, and also I think we reached out to because of some of his responses in the survey and some of the interesting things he was doing. Stefan, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And lastly, we have longtime Designlab mentor Chrissy Welsh. She's currently the VP of Experience at KPN. She has over 20 years of experience across fintech, health tech, e-commerce, digital product innovation, and AI. Her previous work includes being UX director at ING Analytics and global UX director at Deloitte and Phillips. And she is the course creator of our forthcoming AI for UX design course, which we'll be giving a shout out to and talking about for a minute at the end. The first cohort of which is launching May 2nd. So welcome, Chrissy. Great. So let's dive in. Feel free to follow along in the survey if you've got it, but you're not going to need it. I'm going to give you all the kind of data you need. I guess the first thing, just to start, and I don't know if it was surprising to people, but kind of the first thing we asked people is just, are you using AI and how much are you using AI? And I think the general direction wasn't surprising to me, but maybe the numbers were. I think the vast majority of people were at least experimenting, but in terms of using it a lot, only 10% of people characterize themselves as having extensively integrated AI into their workflow. And only about 8% of people said they use it kind of more than with 50% of their working hours, right? So almost everybody is noodling around with it. I think it was around 90%. Very small group of people are using it extensively. Surprising, not surprising, curious of like kind of panelist reaction to that. And we also asked people as to why that's the case, but we'll get into that. Let's start with that. Chrissy, I don't know, what's your first take on that being the data?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I thought the numbers would be higher. So for me, it's a little surprising. I would thought more people would be using it more extensively. I think the big challenge, especially for people if they work in corporations, is the AI technologies are locked out of their computers, so they're not allowed to use it. And that's the biggest risk factor. And the things that I see a lot more is that it's not a case of you're not doing it yourself. It's that the IT administrations often in the companies have locked you out from using it because they're exploring themselves how they want it to be used first. And so in that respect, their big challenge for designers is how do you then continue to explore and make sure that you're not falling behind if you're working in a corporation that has actually stopped you from using it in the work. And that's something I had to spend a lot of time with both my IT department, but also with my design team, and also how to make those use cases and how to protect your company data at the same time. Because as soon as you start sharing that data, you've got to be careful which models you're using and who's using it and who's got ownership over it. So I think those are the big stumbling blocks, I think. And you can dive into each of those areas, right, and figure out why that's the case. But I think that's the reason why the numbers aren't higher, I think.
I was really, I think that hits it on the money to some degree. We did an event with design ops professionals, and design ops are typically larger orgs. And I think on one hand, you think, hey, these large orgs have the resources to deploy and do exciting stuff with technology. But across the board, what we heard was, I need to ask permission. I'm not allowed to use it. Hey, I just got to use a note-taking tool, right? That was the big win, right? Like, and so, and I did just I double check, like, who were the people who said they've extensively integrated, and by and large, it's not the Fortune 500 people, right? And we can talk a little bit more about maybe what that means. Nanda or Stefan, curious, your take on that stat around usage. 90 some are dabbling. Very small percentage are extensively using it today.
From my perspective, at least from the teams I have been working with and seeing, I'm totally agree with Chrissy's point that most of the time the IT department will blacklist most of these websites. But the other thing is also most people don't understand what they can do with these tools. Because for them, it's just ChatGPT or Midjourney, things like that. They don't really understand what else exists in the world, what is being done. There's also a lack of a lot of awareness of the capabilities of these products and how they integrate into our workflow, which we kind of initially had to struggle with a lot with our design team, where people would just assume AI can't do something until somebody had to come in and show them how it's done. And then we would get a lot more buy-in into the teams. So that was another thing that we noticed a lot, is because there is so much information available and things are moving so fast that sometimes people just get lost, or it's just too much overwhelming for them to consume that and kind of figure out how to integrate it into your workflow. That's something I've
one
noticed.
of the big reasons people mention not using it is, the tools don't suit my needs, right? And I think that can be interpreted a number of ways. Like maybe the tools don't suit your needs, or maybe you're not aware of all the tools and what they can do, right? And so that's kind of an educational challenge. By the way, Designlab has courses. We'll soon have courses on this. Stefan, curious your take.
Yeah, not to just pile on top of the same thing. I think IT issues is what hinders a lot of people, but at least what I've seen is just some hesitation for people just how to start, because they're like, prompting is hard, I'm not getting the things I want back from it. So that's at least what I've seen is the difficulty for people just wanting to figure out how to start using it and getting effective results from it.
Great. Yeah. Curious, like Chrissy, you worked and tested a lot of this AI stuff at a relatively large org, and curious how you navigated, which was ING, navigated the, I don't know if you call it politics or compliance or kind of all of the risks that larger orgs, especially in maybe financial spaces, are reticent to do this, or were you just lucky?
I think I was in the right place at the right time in the right department. And I have a seek forgiveness, not permission policy deep within myself. So I think all of those things combined helped me. But the first thing is, I'll talk about where I was positioned. I was positioned in an exploratory part of the organization that is advanced analytics. Our job is to be advanced analytics. The job is to explore the cutting edge of big data, and how we crunch these big numbers. And I work alongside data scientists. And so the position I was in as a designer with data scientists building products meant that I almost had a carte blanche, a free rein to do what I wanted within reason. And the thing I would say there is I was never allowed access to client data. That's the first thing I'll say. I couldn't crunch with real data. I was crunching with proxy data, or I was doing work with publicly available data. So those are things like, in the case of ING, that was things like annual reports for companies and things that are not protected in the space. And because of that, I could experiment rather extensively and also integrate the tools, because the risk on the leakage or exposure on the data was so low. And I'm getting quite technical about how I was able to do it, but basically I made the pinky promises with IT, locked myself out of the data areas, and then just experimented in that way. That's how I was able to integrate the tools and make the proof point cases I need to make to roll this out in other parts of the organization, because I had to make the proof first. You can't, it's like a chicken and an egg. You can't do that unless you start to be able to prove something with the data, that you can get time reduction for your team members, that you can do this KYC process and reduce it down to this amount of time. You can only do that if you can show it. And so, yeah, I was just I talk about it a lot, but I was in a privileged position to be able to do that. So I was experimenting for a whole year, and I got my workflow really tightly done. I was really happy with it. And if there's one thing I leave behind at ING, maybe it's that, and I'm happy with that as I move on to KPN. But I've got another challenge with telcos. But yes, that's basically how I was able to do it. So bit of the right place, right time, I think.
Cool. Stefan and Nanda, I'm not familiar with the size of the orgs you guys are necessarily working in, but interested in your take. Like, were you met with any resistance? And both of you kind of are doing extensive things with AI, for design. How you navigated that, or other orgs that are smaller, the mandate is you got to use this stuff. You got to move fast. Curious what your guys' experience was.
I guess before I joined the Electrolux, I was at a food delivery company, and I was working in internal tools for support. That's like an easy place to integrate AI and machine learning and like LLMs to do that. So I had a little bit of a 2-year head start before I came over to Electrolux. So coming here, it's a quite big org, and it's a 100-year-old company. So they're kind of scared of new technologies coming through to do more to shake up a bit of a hardware company. But I think one of the things there is just not exposing like what Chris was saying, nothing everything we use was publicly available if we were going to use it, and not uploading any like private data in that thing. I think, and just trying to find things that can help just expedite workflow. One of the things I shared was, I know we have to support 16 different countries, and this is like back when I was working in Toronto. We had to do everything in English and French, and sometimes you just need a quick translation to figure out, will this copy fit in this button in this language that notoriously has 60 more characters than English that I'm writing in. So having those kinds of things kind of help expedite workflows in that sense. But not much resistance from that point. The other parts where they're exploring it, and now the companies are saying like, okay, this is something we should move on now at that point.
Nanda, curious your take on this.
Yeah. So from my end, I think I was incredibly lucky to be placed in like my organization, because for us it was a lot more top-down approach. So it was more our CEO coming in and challenging us, what can you do with AI? You throw a use case at us, go figure it out. And we do that. We do a lot of experimentation that way. Like every 2-3 weeks, 4 or 5 designers just get together, pick a tool, and just try to push it as much as they can and see where it can fit into a workflow, get back some results, and then the other people do that experiment, get more data back into the system, and that keeps on going. So there is almost a continuous system of experiments going on continuously, where more inputs are coming into the system and more things are getting figured out. So a lot of these tools that we kind of learned came from those experiments. So at any given point, at least 1 to 2 experiments keep running in our company, at least in the design team. So that gets a lot of things back into how we can build our workflows better. And that also gives us a lot more data. We make sure we build our own things. So we don't really use any client-side work. We have a great talent nurture program within our company. So there's a lot of material that is made just for ourselves because we're learning different stuff. We just use that as inputs into the flow again, and then use that to kind of, build our learnings for most of the stuff there. So I would say incredibly placed at the right time in a great company that is really pushing us to do more experiments. So that's kind of how we've had zero, any roadblocks in terms of adopting AI into our systems here.
Got it. I want to change gears a little to like how people are using AI. I think probably a lot of the people on this call are particularly interested in like, hey, can I pick up something that maybe I'm not thinking about? The data, I don't know, surprising once you think about it, maybe the numbers again. So number one by far, 75% of people who are using it say they're using it for content generation, UX writing, microcopy, that kind of stuff. Over 60% user research and data analysis. Then it falls off a cliff. Around 30% said visual design and asset generation. My take is this is the Dollies, the Midjourneys, Visual Electric, what have you. And then it drops off another cliff, and you have, prototyping, wireframing, user journey mapping, accessibility. All those things are, 20% or below. So really, it's at the top. Content generation, user research. There's a little bit of visual asset generation, and then but people at large aren't really doing the other stuff. Maybe, again, the ordering, maybe not surprising. Probably, Chat GPT has the most, awareness. People are using it. When you guys hear that data, is that anything surprising there? And also, where do you think the biggest opportunity that maybe people are missing is, if, when you kind of look at that as the stack rank of how people are currently using these tools? Stefan, maybe, start with you.
Yeah, I think to me, it wasn't that surprising. I think the easiest thing to kind of get out of ChatGPT is content generation, because I think that's the first thing you associate it with. Is you put it in, it's a chat interface, it comes out, it gives you good data, and I think that's the easiest thing from it. I think more of the image generation that just came out more recently is stuff that you're seeing more and more. It's also a good way to kind of combat what I just gave this talk at the office for the designers here, was talking about like combating the blank canvas kind of paralysis. It's a good way to just kind of get ideas started and flowing, and even if it's text-based, like how do I even start this hero or this website from scratch? It's a good way just to get the idea going, so that you can riff on something. I always found, at least personally, I've always found being able to start from something is much easier to give feedback and iterate on rather than trying to invent something on a blank canvas that way.
Cool. Nanda, your thoughts?
Yeah, so again, for us as well, right? So it's mostly the ease of use that we've seen, right? It's very easy to use ChatGPT compared to any of these other tools that initially might look difficult, or there's a little bit of learning curve to most of these tools that come on the later end of the spectrum, which have prototyping abilities or creating screens. And also, since you are in that brainstorming phase, most of the time you kind of want, it's difficult to think and prompt, right? We are used to working a certain way when we are making designs, that as you keep putting stuff together, your brain starts to have more ideas and you start putting things very differently. But having to think of it like a prompt and then kind of get your output is a slight change of how you think as well. So that's also a thing we had to kind of figure out. Why do we do sketches more to kind of combat that instead of just trying to prompt it directly? Or do we come up with some sort of like a prompt library that will enable you to have a conversation and get to a better output more quickly? So things like that were things that we kind of experimented with. But the main thing that we were trying to combat there was your way of thinking needs to slightly change from where you are building something to now you're working with somebody to build something essentially with these tools. So that was kind of what we've seen as was the main hindrance for most people to kind of get more out of these tools.
Got it. Chrissy, slight tweak on the question. I know you've spent a lot of time integrating AI into your entire workflow. I guess, okay, the obvious things, the things that everyone's are doing are content creation, maybe some things with research. Outside of those, what do you think is in your experience, the opportunity, like the biggest opportunity for people, if that's really all people are doing? I know, again, you've integrated across your whole workflow, but like, where's the place where you're saying, hey, I'm seeing tons of either better work, time savings, like the one other place that maybe people isn't as obvious that people are missing?
Yeah, there's a couple of big ones. I don't know how long you're going to let me talk for, but I'm going to try to condense it down into like a minute, maybe. I'll try to get there. There's a couple of big changes I think I see in my team, but I wanted to talk about extensively with designers. We're used to touching every piece of the puzzle in design. That's changing. We're not the ones creating every piece anymore. We've got AI assistants, or we've got things co-creating with us. So we have to become a co-creative partner in the game of design. The second thing I see is we can now interrogate data a lot better. Your user insights, your user interviews, you can summarize those, you can interrogate those, you can upload massive amounts. You can upload 2, 3, 10 of your interviews and go, and then you question the LLM with, okay, what's my biggest insights from these 10 interviews? You don't have to be the one to sit there and spend hours trying to interrogate and connect the dots. You've got a machine to connect the dots. Your job is to be the curious partner and get the best out of it. So your role in that is going to shift. And then it's going to be, you can even ask it, what am I not seeing? What have you not told me yet? You can ask LLMs these things and it will give you answers that you can then use. You can ask it for gaps in your personas. You can upload those and go, okay, what is the niche for this industry that's not being served yet? Or what am I not seeing? This is really powerful. It's a powerful way of changing. Our role in design is going to adjust. We're going to be way more strategic than we were ever been before. Our time is going to be spent on actually getting good answers as to what needs to be designed next. And we're going to have to partner with the business on strategy, business objectives, and have a bit more of a say in what we build, how we build it, and who we're building it for. And interestingly, another layer on that is when you start seeing that you're designing prompts for other people to use, that is, you include prompting in your own product. Now you have to design something for someone else to prompt into to generate the content. And now you've got to think about what kind of content can be generated and how do we protect it from abuse and all those other interesting things that come out as a designer. Because it's not just us using the tools and then getting an answer. We're going to be designing in these tools into our tools for other people to use. And then our role's going to shift again. So it's getting a bit meta, but I just wanted to say that that's something I see that excites me a lot about how we use it, but also, so how do you help someone else basically generate designs? For example, there's a case study I look at from, I'm going to shut myself down because I'm talking too much. I just want to say it's an exciting time. There's a lot that we can do, and our role is going to shift. Okay, I will calm it down a notch, getting too excited.
Great. Well, love the enthusiasm. Kind of staying on this, I think we're kind of talking about what people are doing. I know there are so many tools, right? And it's easy to get lost in how many tools there are. And I also want people who are on this call to get something maybe that they can go and do and take away. I was on a similar type of event related to marketing, and everyone was kind of saying, well, I don't know, maybe it's not ready yet to use, and it wasn't the most useful. So I want people on this event to take something away. Number one tool by far, not surprising, ChatGPT was at least 2x what every other tool was. The other top 5, well, I'll just read all of them: Figma AI, Midjourney, Claude, in descending order: Adobe Firefly, Dolly, Perplexity, Notion, Copilot, Visual Electric. Panelists, like the tool quick answer on the tool that's not ChatGPT that you swear by, and quick couple bullets on how you're using it. Nanda, curious, favorite tool that's not called ChatGPT.
For me, there would be Claude and Creaty.ai. Those would be the two ones because they're purely
how are you
from an execution point of view. So Claude is great at brainstorming in a single chat window and then asking it to visualize it. It'll give me a rough idea about what it's thinking. I'll just pull up some standard components that it has access to from the React library and just put things together. So as I am brainstorming, I can just use it to visualize quickly, see if that's the right direction. If not, just quickly move on. The additional advantage with Claude or Creaty is they generate code, which you have plenty of plugins, which you can just copy paste the code and bring it into Figma with full auto layout, with full components and everything that I can just edit on top of that. So I don't need to start at 0. I can start somewhere in like 50% already, and then just edit on top of it and get much faster to my final result. So that's kind of one thing that I use a lot.
Cool. Chrissy, I know you have a ton, but what's your one tool you swear by that's not ChatGPT?
Galileo.ai, or use Galileo app. Prompt to UI design. That's what it does for you. And the reason I love it is because it's not perfect, right? Don't seek for perfection with generated AI at all. But what it does is it allows you it generates an interface for you if you describe it. It can also generate flows. It's really great for doing that, really great for prototyping. But then you can you can download and take all of the editable components into Figma. And then you can adjust it. And then from there, if you're really smart, you can then connect it to bolt.new. And then you can upload your Figma prototypes when you're finished. And then you can go straight to Codebase, which is a really fast flow for how to get something out. And it's not perfect. Don't seek perfection here. But this is like 2 flows I swear by for fast prototyping. Okay. I actually have 4 that I would love to recommend. I'll stop at 2. There's another 2 I'd love to talk about.
Stefan.
Okay.
I think for me, the one that I go to the most is not ChatGPT, is Notebook LM. I use it.
A lot of people in the chat were swearing by it, and I love that people in the chat are mentioning tools and giving shout outs. But sorry, go ahead, Stefan.
Yeah, Notebook LM is probably my go-to most recently. So a lot of it, what I tend to use is if I'm doing deep research reports coming out of ChatGPT, I'm also pulling other resources to just help me get a deep understanding of what I'm building. So a good example is if I'm working on a project for work, I'll do all the research, get all the resources, all the links that are needed, get other things that are happening within the company as well. But then also I have run SWOT analysis in ChatGPT, bring it to Notebook LM on top of videos or anything else that helps supplement it. And then what I do is I just generate the podcast. And for me, I tend to send that out as a report to other people, and I've seen them come more engaged to meetings after the fact to be able to discuss this, because I'll be honest, anytime I've sent out a 1-pager or a slide deck, nobody reads it before the meeting, so I'm stuck getting people up to speed, and this has been game changer in that sense, that they're able to come to the meeting more prepared so that we can start getting into the work that we need to get into.
Cool. Switching gears a little to, kind of some of the downsides, limitations, constraints, what have you. We asked folks, why aren't you using it more? I think number one answer was just concerns about accuracy or quality. About half the folks mentioned that. Then tools don't meet my needs, although, some of that could be education gap, lack of understanding of AI tools, and then ethical considerations. About a quarter of folks mentioned that. Curious, I guess, response to any of that. How, I think the number one thing that was on people's mind, the number one thing cited was just like, I can't trust these tools, right? They're not accurate. It's low quality. How do you guys navigate that in your own workflows? I know, Chrissy, you said a couple times just now, don't worry about perfection. Obviously, there's a certain bar that things need to meet, depending on who's ultimately going to be using the product. But how do you think about that in terms of quality? And then if anyone wants to comment on any of those items, interested to hear what you have to say.
Can I start by saying you're right, but you're the bar for quality. It's a tool like everything else. You're the bar. So you're still the human in the loop. You're still the most important person to make sure the quality is there. So yes, the tools are not going to be perfect. They're going to give you things back that are not quite right, but you are the bar of quality, and that does not stop whenever you use AI tools. Okay, be quiet.
I think what changed my mental models on it when I first started getting into it was I had a friend describe it to me as like Robert De Niro in the movie The Intern. So you have this really worldly, knowledgeable intern, but you still have to review their work because they're an intern. So if you think of it that way, like anytime you ask somebody to do it, they're like, I've had good interns, but some of them sometimes just make up sources and make up things. So you have to question it and go with it with a grain of salt. It's that old accounting thing, trust but verify motto that they have.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what we've been doing as well. Like, whatever you use AI for to generate anything, there needs to be somebody who kind of verifies and validates it at the end of the day, because most of these are still quite early stage, and they'll only get you halfway through. If you're thinking about execution and things like that, you might get a lot better on the early stages of research and stuff. But again, all of these need to be validated, and the sources need to be linked back so that you're not building on hallucinated data at the end of the day. So the human in the loop is quite important at the end of the day. And that's where your experience comes in. How quickly can you validate and judge what's coming out of these things and help it give more direction to these tools?
I saw something, I love the activity in the chat, by the way. A lot of folks commenting on things. I saw something in the corner of my eye, which I wanted to bring up, which I think is kind of the silent or not silent elephant in the room, which is, I'm going to paraphrase, but like, hey, the fear is not, is that someone who's not a designer is basically going to take this. I'm going to be out of the loop. Basically, I'm going to be out of the job or out of the process. Do they need designers? What's your philosophical response or approach or thought about this of, hey, like, yeah, I'm the quality bar, but if I'm not there, I'm not the quality bar. And, should I be, are you guys worried? How do you think about this? Which probably it's not just designers, right? It's probably everybody in knowledge work is to some degree thinking about right now, but curious of your specific perspective vis-a-vis design specifically. I don't know. Whoever wants to talk first, go ahead. I won't.
So I'll go first, I guess. So we've run that experiment actually in our company. So we've given PMs a couple of these tools. They've taken Bolt, they've taken Lovable, tried to make designs, and we've kind of seen like where things end up. So what we found was quite interesting, right? So if the PM who's kind of working with these tools has internally a high bar for the quality of output that he's looking for, they can get a good and a decent amount of output. But if there is no compass of what's good, what's bad, or how things should work, that immediately they were not able to get to the same level of quality. But in both instances, they still needed somebody to come in and refine by using maybe some principles of UX or using some standard rules that designers kind of already know how things should work, have the right set of mental models on how the user might expect things to work. Now, there's nothing to say other people can't learn these things. And that's the blurring of lines that will probably happen a lot more. If you are curious enough, you can, but you'll still kind of need somebody who's a specialist, who has a lot depth of knowledge to kind of make sure that things are in the right direction at the end of the day. That's kind of where at least I stand so far, based on what I've seen.
Others?
I think I can jump in next. I think a lot of it's interesting to hear these kinds of things every few years. I think there was a big, at least when I was transitioning from traditional media to web design, Squarespace came out with drag and drop and all that. And people were like, oh, we're not going to need designers to build websites anymore. That didn't hold as true. I think there's always just going to be space for it, but I think overall what we're doing as designers is going to be there. You need that expertise from there, kind of like what Nanda was saying. Like you're going to need that quality check. You're going to need that person there. Like it's the same thing if you ask a product designer, product owner to do sketches. Like they feel how hard it is at the end of the day, and they're like, I can't do this as well as you can. So I think it's just another tool of communication, really.
Chrissy, anything to add?
Yeah, I think we're going to see an influx of bad design on the market. That's going to be the result of what is going to happen. There's going to be a lot of bad design. But I want to remind everyone, this happens in cycles, and we've seen it before. We've seen it with boilerplates, whenever they came out with code that you could chuck together. We've seen it with low-code websites, whenever people could put components together and release, like Squarespace or Wix and these kind of companies. They're not replacing developers. They still haven't replaced developers. And they're not going to replace designers, because as the market and as people become way more sophisticated into what they want from products, it will become evidently clear that these kind of design tools that people can chuck together themselves are not going to be enough to service the needs. And remember, our customers are way more sophisticated, advanced, and they demand a lot more now than they ever did. So design has to feel right and good. Customers are not going to accept friction from apps. And if you have someone who doesn't understand how to design something well for somebody or test it or improve it, it's still not going to work the way it should. And if everything could work the way it wanted to, then startups wouldn't fail, right? Because startups with good ideas wouldn't fail based on experience. And we know that 9 out of 10 of them do, because they haven't got the product market fit. So just because someone can make something doesn't mean it's good. I think it will mean we can demand a higher salary, personally, because I think if people can go build a lot of crap in the market, then building something great becomes something important about what we can do with our skill set. And then that becomes way more visible, especially if we get into I think the trick is going to be getting into the metrics and the data to prove the ROI of what we've got on the table. And I think that's the niche and where we are going to be playing a lot more, I think. I'm an optimist.
Well, there's a ton of really great audience questions that I want to get to, and just to keep the conversation going. Before we do that, I want to take a 30-second break just to shout out this course that we have coming up. I'm going to put up a slide for 1 second. If you didn't realize from what we said before, we have this AI for UX design course, which was created by Chrissy here. Chrissy, you're getting a lot of great feedback in the chat. So
I love
it. If you love what she has to say, she actually created this course based on the workflows and work she did at ING. It's a 4-week course. Weekly, there will be lectures, and there's going to be project work that builds on itself, where you're really integrating AI into the entire UX flow. And by the end, it will culminate in a project which you can add to your portfolio. So we're really excited about this course. It is we have initially 50 seats available. I think most of those are full. We're actually trying to get some additional mentors to open up some additional space. Emily, you dropped the link for the course. There it is. You might have lost it because we have some chat folks. But again, that launches May 2nd. I encourage you guys to check it out. Yeah, drop in that link one more time. The course is $799. We're for the first cohort doing a $100 discount. So if you're interested, again, I think we have probably about 40 of those seats, 40 some of those filled. There are a few seats left. We're going to try to open up some additional. So if we get backed up, we're going to have a wait list. but check it out. We're really excited about it and what Chrissy's putting together. So that's the sales portion. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second, and we will get to the question. Chrissy, anything you want to briefly say about the course that you'd really want people to take away?
Yeah, I would really love people to know that integrating these tools, like I think I've hinted at it before, like expecting it to be perfect, that's not the goal, and it won't be in the course. I talk a bit about the human in the loop and our role in making sure the integrity is there in design. One thing that's new that I think our role is going to have, which I talk about in the course, that I would love designers to start looking at, is an ethical audit. I talked about it before, which is we need to start disclosing and how we can do that, where we've used AI in the system, where we've generated content, because that is how we protect our clients. That's how we protect our company. That's how I do it at ING. I am able to trace back where you use things so that whenever you generate content, this is going to be part of the new way that we're going to have to work. The same way as you have to put that copyright symbol whenever you use a picture from Unsplash or something like that, you're going to have to do the same. And I think that's something I would love to be able to incorporate into other people's way of working. So that's new. And if you're really interested in how you do that, you can come to the course and I'll show you exactly what that looks like and exactly how to integrate those things to make sure that you are future ready for the next generation of what design can look like.
And that's a perfect segue. I'm just like looking at the questions. I think some are things, that we answered throughout, but Shani had a question about curious how you're handling the ethics of using these AI tools in your companies. How are you checking that the tools are doing the quote unquote right work with trustworthy results? Who is responsible for the output? Chrissy, I know you spoke to that a little bit. Curious, Nanda or Stefan, has that been something that's come up in your work of integrating AI into your workflow?
Yeah, quite a bit. So initially, that was one of the biggest concerns we've had as well, with most of the data that comes through. So we have a policy in place, or more like a document that we kind of run through whenever we are using AI to make sure the data coming through is validated. We have the links or sources that it uses to get that output. If you don't have the sources, we will spend some time actually doing the Google search to find sources that will validate it and then link them back together again, so that whatever data is being then presented to the clients, they do know that this has been backed up by real world examples, and they can visit those examples if they want. So it's not just something we quickly came up with AI. So we have a whole system in place for that. We also have people, we share the chats themselves whenever required with the clients, so that they can see the conversation and like kind of what came out of it, what was, all those points as well. So we were quite transparent in terms of usage there. Same thing with anything that comes with execution. So we're transparent with if the screen is made using some AI parts, we let them know where it has come from. So we have a whole system of documentation that we kind of maintain whenever we are using anything AI in our workflows.
Got it.
Yeah.
Stefan, anything to add there?
Nothing really to add, because the company I'm at, we're quite in a nascent stage of integrating AI into our workflows. So I think a lot of people is more of like what we talked about at the start, that they're quite hesitant to put it in because of all the AI IT blockers into it from there.
Got it. And there was a question about the course. Is there another date? Yes, there will be a June cohort. I think you can sign up for it now in case you can't make May, although we are giving folks a $100 discount for that May cohort. Another question, kind of maybe related, how do you navigate, not putting confidential things into AI tools? Sometimes it's difficult to write good prompts without adding elements that are specified to the project. So how do you balance, having it be useful enough without putting in that data? Any takers to that question?
I'll take it quickly. If you're in doubt, use Claude. Claude makes sure that you own all of the copyright and the data before you put it in. So if you don't use ChatGPT if you're in doubts. So if you do have doubts and you do want to add more, use an LLM that allows you to keep the proprietary information, and they're not going to do any data mining on it. So that is something, top tip if you want to use it. And you can also use Copilot if it's installed in your IT systems. It's integrated with your own. I don't like Copilot that much, but don't tell them I said that. But you can. It is integrated in Microsoft tools, so you can use it. But Claude is basically the one I would use if in doubt.
To add on top, just one more tip: if people are technically savvy enough to pull this off, you can use Hugging Face to get a local LLM. So your data stays on your system and still get some responses out of those. So there's some great models available on Hugging Face that you can use. So that lives on your system, so it's not sharing information with anybody else. That way you can keep things private without really sharing with anybody else.
Yeah.
Cool. And feel free to jump in or not. We'll just jump through the questions.
Yeah, and another question's good. I mean, I have nothing new to add.
Yeah. Okay. Have you used any AI user testing, A/B testing tools that help you accelerate your process and gather feedback?
I can jump in quickly with this one. I think what I've used it more is in information architecture. So when I use it as a way to validate and help with code sorting. So putting in a bunch of nodes, I found it quite helpful to be able to say, where could I put this information within these categories? Can you help me, or generate new categories from that one? Is the quickest one I've found it helpful from there.
I'll just move on. Hey, so Sean wants to know, hey, a lot of the tools that we name, and I'll just rattle those off again: ChatGPT, Figma AI, Midjourney, Claude, Adobe, Dolly, Perplexity, Notion, Copilot, Visual Electric are kind of the ones everyone knows about. Are there some niche emerging ones that you guys find interesting? So before I asked you what's your favorite non-ChatGPT tool, I guess here it's like, what's the deep cut? What's the tool that is your secret that nobody knows about that you guys are using or are having some success with? Any takers?
I'm too excited for this chat. I have to answer my pants or something. So the first one is Scholar GPT. The reason I love it is it collects a lot of the already validated research information and data available on just Scholar Google, basically. The place that you go to for downloading papers about particular deep information on topics. You can use that to interrogate market information. How many people have mental health illness in the Netherlands? Where's the exploration part? How much is the expenditure per capita in this area for this niche market? That is my go-to for discovery, high-level information before I go deep. So that gives me a lot of really great stuff. And I love doing it because before I would literally go to Scholar or these places and download all these papers, and I would read them myself and find the information in it, and now I can get it. I still have to check the source. You don't take the information without checking your source, so you still have to check that the information in there, but it's a lot faster. Honestly, my discovery period of work is so much more faster than it ever has been before. And Gamma app for generating, use an LLM of your choice to generate a structure for let's say a pitch deck, or let's say something that you're going to take to a board or something like that, or even just your team meeting. It will generate you the slides, and then you still have to edit it, you still have to take it out. But honestly, I don't know if anyone else feels this, but making slides has become our job in some cases. Who likes it? Who in the room really likes making slides as part of our design job? Not me. So I really want someone, you really like it. You're like, I'm the one person in the room that likes making slides. Well, I don't. Just it generates you the flow at least, and then you can take it into PowerPoint or wherever you want to take it, and then you can edit it, and it's cut my time down, and I have a bit more of my sanity back. And I am like jumping in all over the place to tell people how to do things, but that's a really great thing that I love.
Nanda or Stefan, any other deep cut tools that people haven't heard of that you want to tell them about?
I don't think it's a deep cut. I really love Lovable though. I build a lot of personal apps for it. So I build out like a Pomodoro tracker or all these things that are very niche, like a design pattern generator, things like that, which I don't want to just find a website. I just make one myself and then use it for my own purpose. So it's a cool, fun thing that I play with, but I don't think it's quite a deep cut.
No, I mean, design-wise, not much of a deep cut, but I've been playing with UI Izzard just for fun right now. I like the fact that you can prompt in and upload just a couple screenshots of your design system or anything like that to help you with it. I mean, outside of design, if you want to know that, I mean, there's a couple of fun AI tools. I use one for endurance sports called Humango, which is a AI coach to help you with workouts. So I mean, that's always
Quick
fun.
tip, I didn't know how that was pronounced, and there's a whole YouTube video. Apparently it's pronounced wizard, even though I don't know how you get that from UI Zard.
I've been
But
calling it UI's art for
it's
ages.
wizard, apparently.
Yeah.
They did a whole social video on it. Okay, actually the most upvoted question, and this question was asked a little while ago, so maybe people take it back, but the most upvoted question was to hear specific examples on where AI was used and how it improved the product design workflow. The conversation has been very vague so far. Again, that was 20 minutes ago, but I guess maybe we can get super concrete, maybe not about the whole workflow, but like one, each, a very specific example. Hey, I integrated this. Here's where, it saved me time, gave me better results, whatever. If we could do a quick round robin on that, one quick hit.
I think
point.
the easiest one for me was to talk about the custom GPT I made that was trained in translations for 16 different languages, and then I put in a string to get the longest character counts and the shortest character counts, so I can test them in my designs from there, so that I make sure with the content designers that something like click here works in German, but also works in Korean if needed.
Great, super specific example. Obviously, it doesn't fit everybody's workflow, but in that case, probably saved a ton of time. Nanda or Chrissy?
I've talked a lot about a lot of different ones that I've integrated, but there's one I haven't spoken about yet, and it's really basic, and it's in Teams, and that is transcription, which is every time you do a user interview, if you turn transcription and video recording on, you can download the transcripts and collect your transcripts together, upload them into an LLM, and interrogate the LLM on the insights and outcomes. It will give you summaries if you upload the transcripts in there. That's a really specific short workflow that you can integrate tomorrow if you want it. That's just about getting the right insights. You can do that in about 10 minutes. And that is already in your tools, probably in your organization.
Nanda.
All right. So from my side, one of the key workflows that we do quite a bit with, especially with clients, is maybe when you're doing a design sprint with them and we're doing like an ideation phase, we ask them to sketch out an idea on how they think this might be visualized. We just bring that into like a tool like a Creative and just quickly create a screen out of it. Everybody does. So you don't just look at a sketch and you're discussing it. We're just bringing a lot of design ideas to life. And then we are quickly just slicing and dicing them together to put a screen together and then get an alignment on the design direction. Like what are the things that go into that specific screen, for example. And then we can have discussions around that more quickly. And instead of doing this after the call, sending them a Loom video, sending them an email, it just happens on the call. So you come out of the call with an aligned and set design direction, which just helps you just build out that follow further after the call is done.
Cool. Couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. I've done a lot of experimenting with UX research AI tools, Quali, Maven, Verve, and a million more. Do any of these connect with UX design AI tools for concept testing?
Yeah, every tool is the more tools you add, sometimes it doesn't speed you up anymore at some point, because you have to then always do a download and a conversion and a dump somewhere else to actually use it. Yeah, so for me, I tend to our testing tools are either in-house or for example, I Connect Maze is the one that we use inside ING, but that is about getting the data and the answers from your testing research. And then I always extract and then put that into another either LLM or another location to actually interrogate the data. That's what we call it. So integration's a word. I'm the integrator. I'm the one pulling the information out and putting it somewhere else. So a seamless integration at this moment doesn't exist, but that's why we have a job, right? Because we've got to take the data out and put it somewhere else. And that's the workflow. We're the workflow. So I'm afraid I'm the workflow in that case. Sorry, Nando. I think you were going to say something, and
No, that's pretty similar to what we do as well, because none of them connect seamlessly at all. Though Figma is saying they will bring something on coming conference, but it's mostly us figuring out a way to connect them together by manual intervention. But yeah, there's no set workflow that just connects seamlessly as of now, at least.
Yeah, but that manual intervention can still save us a ton of time, a lot of time. Yeah.
There's so much in the chat. I'm going to just throw one last question. Just happened to go in the chat and see the questions tab. Someone asked around AI tools, workflows to create, maintain design systems. I don't know. Is there anything that people have used in that vein?
I can give an example, and this is not going to be the most effective, but this will just slightly accelerate the workflow. So if you can just, sketch or just prompt Claude, let's say, on the kind of component that you need, it'll make a basic version of it. Take the code, put it into Figma, use a plugin, HTML to Figma is a plugin we use most of the time. So you'll get a fully auto layout with text styles and everything set there, and just make it a component and move on. So you can prompt 3 or 4 components together, mostly in Claude. You get 3 or 4 in there, it's created into design system. Then you can use again Claude to write the documentation if you want. So you can do like a whole workflow around there, but that's one thing that can accelerate slightly. Again, it's not perfect, the system, because there might be some times where you might have to do a lot of back and forth, but you can kind of use it to just accelerate a little.
Cool. Well, I'm going to wrap things up then. I think we got through most of the questions. Hopefully I didn't miss any ones earlier, but appreciate the really active group. I think this is the most active chat of any Designlab event I've ever been on. And appreciate the panelists. I think the folks really love this. Yes, someone asked about the recording. The recording, I think, will be sent to everybody. That you guys can check out. And again, I'll give one last shout out, Emily, if you're still there. You can throw up the course link one more time. If you're interested in diving into how to integrate AI into every step of the UX process, you want to go through that workflow, I encourage you to check out Chrissy's course, which launches in a couple weeks. We're really excited by it. I think you guys will be too. And then thanks for joining, be an awesome audience. Thanks to our panelists, and enjoy the rest of your day wherever in the world you are.
Yep. And if anyone wants to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn and talk about AI UX. But yeah, the course is great too. So I'll see you there.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.